In a rainy night, a frantic woman soaked to the bone throws open David's car door, pleading for help. Unaware of the woman's background, David offers her shelter. Little did he know, this simple act of kindness would tangle his life into mess of unforeseen consequences and secrets. Welcome, everyone, to Untold Tales. I'm delighted to share a new story with you. David's days were long and repetitive. He woke up every morning in the small house he had once shared with his late wife, Anna, now filled with photos of their happy times, which made him sad. His mornings were spent in solitude with a simple breakfast and the newspaper. After breakfast, he headed to his job at the grocery store, working there until the afternoon. He would come back home for a short while before going to his night job at the warehouse, a job that barely paid enough to cover his expenses. One rainy night, while driving home from his night shift, David noticed a woman running frantically on the road. She was drenched, her clothes clinging to her body, and her eyes wide with fear. She waved her arms desperately, signaling for help. David hesitated for a moment, but the terror in her eyes compelled him to stop. The rain poured heavily, making it difficult to see clearly. David squinted through the windshield, trying to make out the figure approaching his car. As she drew closer, he could see her shivering, her face pale with fear. "Help me, please. I'm in grave danger. If they catch me, they'll harm me," she said. David hesitated for a moment, his heart racing. He knew picking up a stranger could be dangerous, but something about her desperation convinced him. David's instincts told him to trust her, so he unlocked the door, and she climbed in, trembling and soaked to the bone. "Drive! Please, drive fast! We have to get out of here before they find us," she repeated, her voice trembling. David sped off, his heart pounding. He glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a car chasing them, but the road remained eerily empty. David's mind raced as he drove, trying to make sense of the situation. Who was she running from? Why was she in such danger? He glanced over at her, seeing the terror etched on her face. She kept looking over her shoulder, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. David brought the woman to his home, trying to calm her down. She was still in a state of panic, but David's calm demeanor eventually soothed her. As they entered his small, cluttered living room, David noticed how out of place she looked in his humble abode. She was elegant, despite her disheveled appearance, and he couldn't help but wonder who she really was. "Who was chasing you? Why are they after you?" David asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. The woman looked away, avoiding his eyes. "I can't tell you," she replied softly, her voice tinged with fear and hesitation. David felt a pang of frustration and unease. He had hoped for some answers, something to make sense of the chaotic situation. "But why not? If I'm going to help you, I need to know what I'm up against," he pressed. The woman shook her head, her expression resolute. "I'm sorry, but it's better if you don't know. Trust me." David sighed, feeling the weight of his decision to help her. He wondered if he had made a mistake by getting involved, but he couldn't turn her away now. She needed help, and she was safe in his house. "You're safe now," he said softly. "No one will find you here." She nodded, still trembling, and clutched the blanket tightly. David offered her a cup of tea, hoping it would help calm her nerves. She sipped it slowly, her eyes darting around the room as if expecting danger to lurk in every corner. Eventually, exhaustion overcame her, and she fell into a restless sleep. The next morning, David went to check on the woman, but she was gone. The window of the guest room was open and the front door was ajar. Confused, David wondered why she had left when she was safe in his home. David stood in the doorway of the empty room, bewildered. The bed was unmade, and the blanket lay in a crumpled heap on the floor. He walked over to the window, feeling the cool morning air brush against his face. Had she climbed out in the middle of the night? He walked back to the living room, his mind racing with questions. Why had she left so abruptly? Was she still in danger? He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He rationalized that he had done his best to help her, and it was her choice to leave. As David got ready for work, he noticed a black SUV parked outside his house. He shrugged it off as a coincidence and drove to his job. However, the black SUV followed him at a distance, matching his speed. When David slowed down, the SUV did the same, keeping its distance but staying in sight. David's heart began to race as he noticed the black SUV in his rearview mirror. He tried to stay calm, telling himself it was just a coincidence. But as he turned onto different streets, the SUV followed, maintaining a constant distance. David's mind raced with possibilities. Was this related to the woman from last night? He tried to shake off the paranoia, focusing on getting to work. He arrived at his workplace safely and chided himself for overreacting, but the thought of that strange woman continued to linger in his mind. That night, after completing his night shift, David found a mysterious box on his doorstep. Inside was a photo of that woman he helped and a letter. The letter read, "Be alert and careful. Last night's help could bring big trouble for you. Don't trust or help strangers like you did last night. Thank you for your help." David's hands trembled as he opened the box. The photo was a candid shot of the woman, her expression one of fear and desperation. The letter sent chills down his spine. Who had sent it, and why? The cryptic message left him with more questions than answers. Was it a warning or a threat? He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The letter filled David with a mix of curiosity and fear. He couldn't figure out if it was a warning or a note of gratitude. He wondered who had sent it and why they knew about his encounter with the woman. David spent the night tossing and turning, his mind replaying the events of the past 24 hours. The woman's frantic plea, the black SUV, the mysterious letter. Everything seemed connected, but he couldn't piece it all together. He felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach, a sense of foreboding that something terrible was about to happen. The next day, as David drove to work, he noticed not one but 3 black SUVs following him. He considered calling 911 but hesitated. He wasn't entirely sure if he was actually in danger or just imagining things, and he didn't want to waste the police's time. Besides, his financial situation was precarious, and he couldn't afford to be late for work again. His strict boss had made it clear that another tardy arrival would result in his termination, and David needed both his jobs to stay afloat. David's pulse quickened as he noticed the additional SUVs in his rearview mirror. He tried to stay calm, but the fear gnawed at him. Were they following him? Why? He decided to test his theory by taking a different route, weaving through less familiar streets. His heart sank as the SUVs mirrored his every move, maintaining their distance but never losing sight of him. He felt trapped, unsure of what to do. Calling the police seemed like the logical choice, but he didn't want to seem paranoid or draw unnecessary attention to himself. What if it was just a coincidence? What if the police didn't take him seriously? And most importantly, he couldn't afford to jeopardize his job. With a deep breath, David resolved to get through the day and figure things out later. For now, he just needed to make it to work on time. David arrived at work a few minutes late, anxiety gnawing at him. His boss was notoriously strict about punctuality, and David couldn't afford to lose this job. He braced himself for the inevitable reprimand, mentally preparing an apology. To his surprise, his usually stern boss greeted him with a warm smile instead of a scowl. Throughout the day, his boss continued to treat him with unusual kindness, even going so far as to apologize for past scoldings. David was taken aback. This was completely out of character for his boss. Normally, even a slight tardiness would have earned him a stern lecture. Throughout the day, his boss continued to treat him with an unusual kindness, apologizing for past scoldings and offering help with his tasks. The sudden change in behavior puzzled David. He couldn't understand why his boss was acting so differently, almost deferential. This unexpected kindness, rather than reassuring him, only added to his growing unease. It felt like another piece of the strange puzzle that his life had become since he helped the mysterious woman. David's mind raced with questions. The woman's photo, and the letter, the black SUVs, and now his boss's peculiar behavior. Were they all connected? He couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. David spent his lunch break sitting alone in the break room, trying to make sense of it all. He pulled out the letter from his pocket, reading it over and over again. Who was behind this? And why were they targeting him? He thought about the woman and her desperate plea for help. Was she in danger? Was he in danger now too? The pieces of the puzzle didn't fit, but he knew he had to find out the truth. That night, when David reached his home, he found another mysterious box on his doorstep. This time it contained a small, strange-looking gadget and another letter. The letter read, "Stay away from people you don't know." This gadget will help you if they come for you. Remember, not everyone can be trusted. Thank you for your help." David examined the gadget, trying to figure out what it was. It looked like some sort of tracking device, but he couldn't be sure. The letter's warning echoed in his mind. Was this a tool to protect him, or was it something more sinister? He felt a mix of gratitude and fear. Whoever was behind these letters seemed to know everything about him. The following days were filled with unease. The black SUVs continued to follow David, and his boss's overly kind behavior only intensified. David felt like he was living in a surreal dream where nothing made sense, and he couldn't trust anyone. His every move was being watched, and the growing tension was becoming unbearable. David's curiosity got the better of him. He started researching the woman he had helped, trying to find any clues about her identity. He spent hours online, scouring news articles and social media. One day, he stumbled upon an article about a wealthy businessman, Mr. Wilson, and his daughter, Emily, who had gone missing under mysterious circumstances. The woman in the picture was the same one he had helped. David's heart raced as he read the article. Emily Wilson, the daughter of a millionaire, had disappeared without a trace. Her father, Mr. Wilson, was a powerful figure in the business world, known for his ruthless tactics and immense wealth. David realized that he had unknowingly helped a woman who was at the center of a dangerous game. His mind swirled with questions and fears. How had he become entangled in such a dangerous situation? He knew he had to find out more and warn Mr. Wilson that his daughter had sought refuge in his home. David dialed Mr. Wilson's number with trembling hands, but each time the line was engaged. His frustration mounted as he repeatedly failed to get through. Desperation gnawed at him, and he realized he couldn't wait any longer. He decided to meet Mr. Wilson in person. Just as he stepped outside his house, two men with a menacing air and dressed in dark suits appeared out of nowhere. Before David could react, they grabbed him forcefully and shoved him into the back seat of a black SUV. His heart pounded, and fear coursed through his veins. The car sped through the streets, and David's mind raced with thoughts of how helping the woman that night might have cost him dearly. He glanced at his captors, their stony faces offering no hint of their intentions. The silence was oppressive, and David's anxiety grew with each passing moment. Eventually, the SUV stopped in front of a massive mansion with an ornate nameplate reading Wilson Estate. David's confusion and fear peaked as he was led out of the car and towards the imposing mansion. To his surprise, a well-dressed man in a tailored business suit approached him. It was Mr. Wilson, exuding an air of authority and sophistication. He greeted David warmly, extending a hand in gratitude. Mr. Wilson's voice was calm and measured as he recounted the events. "Emily told me everything about that night," he said. "You saved her life, and for that, I owe you a great debt." David listened in awe as Mr. Wilson detailed the lengths he had gone to protect both him and Emily. Mr. Wilson began to explain everything. Emily had been targeted by dangerous individuals because of his business dealings. These people had been intent on harming her to get to him. David's involvement had inadvertently put him at risk as well, but it had also saved Emily's life. Mr. Wilson revealed that the black SUVs following David were part of a security detail assigned to protect him from potential threats. He had taken every measure to ensure David's safety without alarming him. The letter and the photograph were meant to warn him subtly. Mr. Wilson admitted that he had instructed David's boss to treat him kindly and to apologize for past harsh behavior, ensuring David's safety and peace of mind at work. Grateful for David's courage and kindness, Mr. Wilson offered him a new job at a higher position in one of his other companies, with a significantly better salary. This opportunity would help David pay off his debts and start a new chapter in his life. Overwhelmed with relief and gratitude, David accepted the offer, realizing that his act of kindness had led to an unexpected and life-changing opportunity. David couldn't believe the turn his life had taken. Just days ago, he was struggling to make ends meet, working 2 exhausting jobs and haunted by the memories of happier times with his late wife. Now, he stood on the brink of a new beginning, all because he had taken a chance and helped a stranger in need. The fear and confusion of the past few days melted away, replaced by a sense of hope and purpose. His story reminds us that helping others, even when it seems risky, can lead to unexpected blessings and opportunities. No matter how tough life gets, our good deeds can make a powerful difference.